Alright, House Nothing welcomes you to yet another DFK video. This is the third of its kind. As promised, we're going to deal with party composition, what type of heroes I look for with respect to the Void Hunt, and exactly how I want to use them with respect to skills. So I have quite a few heroes at this point, over 1,000. That's a lot to some people, that's not a lot to some other people. How I was able to kind of go through and see what I had in terms of multiple wallets and such. I use DFK Analytics for this. There's lots of good tools available. I know DFK Quester can do a lot, but what I really wanted was the CSV export file, which you can get quite easily. You can actually put in multiple wallet addresses, auxes here, and then do a search and filter whatever columns you do or do not want, which is exactly what I did, and then exported them to a spreadsheet. So that's kind of how I evaluated what heroes I had. I haven't really bought a lot of heroes for this. I have sold some. There's a lot of buyers out there, which is nice. So once you get all your heroes in a spreadsheet, you can filter and search pretty easily. I like to sort them from HP per level, MP per level, stat per level, and kind of just see what I got. If they're really good, I'll click the use button and push them over to my PvE wallet. If they really sucked in terms of leveling up, I'll try to dark summon them and try again. But that's enough on all that. This is not a summoning video. There are plenty of summoning videos out there. Our friends at Mythic Squad, ADFK, Boggy Boys, Grady, etc. Community members have already kind of done that. There's also a lot of other community tools you can use to view your heroes and sort your data if you want to. Shout out to all the builders out there who make this easy on us. Alright, so this is the wallet I've been using. I've transferred quite a few heroes over here from my questing wallet. I prioritize rarity, I guess. A lot of these heroes, most of these heroes have a stone on them and have leveled up with crystals. Quite a few of them are potatoes that probably don't have stones on them. They just leveled up really, really well. Well, that one did. Hello. Well, this is when I used to summon with stones a lot. Like this one didn't. This guy just leveled up like a beast for some reason and hit a bunch of large HP bonuses. That's mostly what I look at in terms of this sheet. I want HP per level to be as high as possible, and then a decent amount of MP and stats to go along with it. So anyways, once I get my heroes, either by dark summoning or finding potatoes that have gone well, or finding guys that I've been leveling up with crystals and such, it's time to build a comp. What are we looking for? As I was starting to dive into the Void Hunts, I was using all teams of just like 3 level 10s. I think that's a pretty good way to do it. I think you can have a high win percentage with a bunch of level 10s. The boars scale according to your total level. So using 3 heroes of the same level keeps that simple, but you really don't need to. There's no real penalty for using mismatched levels as long as you are able to divide by 3. And if your remainder is 0, you're doing okay. Another way to say that makes sense is the hero average for your party rounds up. And I do mean rounds up. A lot of people say rounds up when they really mean rounds to the nearest whole number. But right now we have 3 level 14s. If I were to get a level 13 or a level 12 in here, we will remain at party level 14. And therefore we will kind of lose 2 levels worth of value. I'll switch out something real quick to a level 12 to show you what I mean. Here we go, we just switched a level 14 priest into a level 12 hero, and we still have our combat party average level at 14. So we don't want to do that. We want to use the 14 priest instead of this guy, or we want to switch one of these guys down to a level 13. We want our total levels basically to divide by 3. That's the most optimal way to do it. Otherwise, you're leaving some value on the table. Another thing to think about with respect to your hero level is inflection points. Love that phrase. But as you know, every 5 levels you get a rarity bonus. So your knight at level 15, for example, will be a lot higher on average than your level 14. 7 points higher in this instance. 4 points higher in this instance. So if you have the choice between a 14 and a 15, 15 is going to be a little better. The skills also have inflection points as well based on how they work at this version of the game. It's like a factorial thing. So 15 is what you need to get this level 5 tier. 10 is what you need to get this 4 tier. 6 is what you need to get this tier. You probably don't want to use a level 9 or level 8 priest or something if you can avoid it, because you're just going to miss out on this tier, which is quite good. However, going all the way down to level 6 is okay, because that way you can use this level 3 tier and be fine. If you really want to use a low level hero, doing it at level 6 and having 3 tiers worth of skills makes a lot of sense. More so than level 4 or level 5, for example, where you only have two tiers. Let's get into building some comps so you can see what I mean. Exactly. One of the non-standard parties I've been using is actually on cooldown for a little bit longer. I've been trying to level up this level 11 Dread Knight. It was level 10 when I started, so we've succeeded a little bit. You can do this on some classes. I don't recommend trying to do it with 2 classes anytime soon. It's a little bit difficult, but something like a heavy, like high HP, high damage, high strength, like a Dread Knight, a Dark Knight, a Paladin, Dragoon, something like that, I recommend, because you can kind of use it as a knight just with no skills. So what I generally do, if this guy was off timer, I would go level 11 Dread Knight up front, level 12 Archer in the middle, and level 10 Priest in the back. So that's 10, 11, 12. That averages out to party level 11, and I can use the Dread Knight pretty much like a knight, just without being able to taunt. So I have to wait for Wild Charge a little bit to avoid Rampage. It's just a little bit worse than having a knight, but he does about 105, 110 average damage and can take a beating pretty well. All he's just going to do is basic attack up front, take a bunch of damage, get healed by the priest, use potions, and then probably die and let the other 2 take it home. It's fine. And the reason we're doing that Dread Knight's a little bit new, and with a good mythic pet and a power-up bonus to our XP and a premium treat, we can get over 1,000 XP, closer to 1,100 XP per successful Void Hunt. And then I still have enough stamina in the day to do another full quest before my Void Hunt timer runs out. Another non-standard build I've done recently is using a affectionately known as Take Your Daughter to Work Day build, which is a level 2 priest in the back. That's right, that's the daughter. And then you have 2 heavies in the middle and front. And this time I would use like the 14s. So this works out pretty well. Where our party level is 10, so we're going to be fighting the lowest tier boars with our level 14s. And what I would do here, this is when I would use this heal, and basically just the priest just sits back there, and these 2 can kind of kill it by themselves at this point. You could also have a Dread Knight or a Dragoon or whatever just sitting in the back at level 2 or level 1 if you just summoned a really nice one. So that's a hard carry right there, because these little heals that we do, I think she heals for about 65 or so with this one at level 2. Those don't really matter that much. If I had a Dread back there or a Dragoon, I would just attack with it every round and then use potions. And if he gets swapped around and dies, I don't really care. But these 2 are pretty much strong enough to beat level 10 comp by themselves. As a quick aside, I did just mention Fight Club. The way I got involved with that project immediately as a player was just like suggesting these formats that you could play. And that's what the game ended up using in terms of lightweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, and such. Towards the end, we were starting to experiment with not having a minimum level, and this DFK obviously doesn't have a minimum level, so we would come up with these wonky builds. Like I said, Take Your Daughter to Work Day build, which is kind of funny, but it's basically just using a super low level along with 2 high levels to fit high level heroes into a tier of fighting that they normally wouldn't belong in. So that's just kind of a fun thing you can do. It's not crucial or anything, but I do think some of the best builds you can make in terms of win percentage are kind of like this. I would say instead of this one, I would want 2 level 15s, so they just would have got their rarity bonus and they just get their level 5 skills. So that's 30 total points. And then you could either add a level 3 with 2 tiers of skills, or a level 6 in the back. Probably priest, probably be like this. So once these guys level up to 15, I'll probably pair them with this level 3 priest, or if she gets a really bad roll for her level up, I'll find a level 6 or a different level 3 or something like that, just to fool around with. I think that'd be a really powerful party. The last non-standard build I've been toying around with kind of focuses on the tier 5 skill. I don't have a whole lot of heroes that are level 15 or higher, unfortunately. I do have this level 16 priest, so I've used her quite a lot in this wonky build. I might as well show you now. So we start with a 16, then we grab 2 level 10s, Archer and Knight. Let's see, we'll grab this guy and this guy. So now we're at 36 total for a party level of 12, which is what you want to see. And the interesting line that this opens up that you don't have for most priests is kind of a nuker build. So the level 5 skill I use is Holy Wrath. It's like a lot of damage. It has a chance to stun. I use it in conjunction with Holy Light. And you can just do a lot of damage to the middle line specifically with this build. So I'll use the priest and the archer to focus fire the middle line instead of the front line. And I actually set my knight up to silence the front line when I needed. This Iron Will skill is pretty ignored for pretty good reason. We're going to talk about skills in a minute. But when you silence the front little bore, it can't nuzzle the middle bore that you're focus firing on with your huge priest skill and archer skill. What I try to do with this build is get a taunt off first with my knight to the mama bore, and then I get a silence off on the middle bore, and then I have basically a window right there to kill the middle bore with my nuker, priest, and archer. Additionally, there's nothing stopping you from using 3 knights or 2 archers, etc. 2 archers and a knight works pretty well, I've found. A priest and 2 knights does not work very well, but I've tried it. I've eventually won. I didn't love it. I kind of don't love any of that. I would just be doing it to meme, right? I did it a little bit last night. My win percentage suffered because of it, but it was fun. Who cares? This costs like 10 cents to do a hunt, so unless you really care about your win percentage for some reason, there's no reason not to experiment. I just prefer to use the normal comp right now because you just have a wider range of things you can do and a more concise strategy. Nothing wrong with using 2 archers or whatever you want to do. Just be careful, not to screw up in terms of rampages and nuzzles. That still applies. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the skills and talk about them a little bit. I'm going to show you what I use. I will caveat this by saying I don't necessarily think this is the most powerful combination of skills in general, but I don't need to build for in general. I don't have 3 or 4 more different encounters to prepare a hero for. I have a single encounter. I know what I want, and this is how I do it. So let's start with the knight. I'm a big fan of challenge. We've talked about it a lot. This is just kind of a necessary evil to me. Basically because of the way rampage works. Rampage is kind of the worst thing that can happen to you. Mama Boar will kill you with that if you're not prepared for it. This is the only real tool you have to deal with rampage like I would like to deal with rampage. It is annoying when the boar resists our challenge. Nothing really we can do there. We can increase our strength. But mostly given the fact that we have to hit and then get a 60 plus 5% of strength chance, we're about 50-55% to land a challenge or a taunt. Almost always be the mama boar. Sometimes we can be one of the small boars to prevent a nuzzle if the mama boar is already wild charging, for example. That being said, I do think Mighty Strike is in a vacuum a more powerful skill than challenge. This is a very strong skill. It does a lot of damage and it debuffs for a reasonable amount of mana. I don't know what you would really say negative about this, except that you need a challenge and you can't have both. When the skill system gets reworked to kind of its final form so you can choose more liberally what you want, it's very possible that I'll want both a challenge and a Mighty Strike instead of some of these skills. And then Shield Up is a distant third for me. Maybe someday this will be good, but not today. Tier 2, I don't think it's a huge deal if you went a different direction, but I do like For the King. This is just a good passive skill. It'll help your damage. It'll help your physical defense. It combos with your 4th tier skill, so that's pretty good. I don't think you'd really hurt yourself by going with one of these other 2, but For the King just seems like it makes the most sense. In the 3rd tier, I think, most people who've talked about this game or thought about it are on to Forever Vigilant. Daze is very good with the way the speed system works. Daze Resistance is very good with how, Headbutt works, Wild Charge works, and Rampage works, I believe. So that's just a lot of value with this skill. When you're not challenging, you need something else to do other than base attack, and this is probably the best thing. I think the worst thing is probably Hold the Line. This is kind of not what I want at all. I don't really want to mess with the pig's order, because you see when I'm playing, I'm really focused on kind of being very exact with how I'm doing damage, so I don't know how this helps me hardly at all. The knight is the only one who's restricted to range 1, so maybe there are some double knight builds or triple knight builds that could make some use of this, but meh. And then there was that one wonky build I talked about where you nuke the middle line, and I don't think this is the best thing you can do. The Daze one is much better, but that is kind of fun, and I've been experimenting with it, like I said. So you can use this to silence the front boar. Unfortunately, you don't get any value from the buff to yourself because they're not silencing you. But if you silence the front boar and you're attacking the middle boar, he can't nuzzle. Meh. It is only for 1 round. This would be a lot better if it was for 2 rounds. Because the problem here that I found, you need to taunt or wait for the wild charge so that you don't get rampaged. And then you only have this 1 round window to kill the middle one while you're preventing a nuzzle. It doesn't really work that well. It would work a lot better if it lasted 2 rounds, but that'd probably be too powerful for most encounters. In this encounter, this just isn't that powerful. I'm a big fan of this passive. As the last one, you get a lot of damage reduction. So far, this combat system has fallen into kind of classic D&D/RPG tropes where you have a tank class, a damage dealer, and a support class. That's what we see respectively with the knight, archer, priest. We want to leverage our knight's defense by keeping them up front and taking the most attacks. That way we don't have to heal as much. All of the pig attacks except for headbutt and wild charge and rampage target the front line, so you can actually do that. Unfortunately, they also tend to shift you around, so you can't necessarily stay in the front line all the time. But anyways, that goes along with our basic thing. It's passive. We don't have much magic. This guy has 99, which is pretty nice. That's a little bit high, although he's level 14. Even at 99, I don't think we have enough to be doing shield smash that often for this small chance to stun. I don't want to be using hold the line, like I said before, to move him around. I guess you could do some build that gets Mama Boar up front with this. I don't know, that's kind of a meme. I'll probably do it at some point just for fun, but doesn't seem great. And you're taking a debuff to your attack. I'm not sure. I don't think this is ever going to be worth 29. I don't know how worth it would be if it was like 18 or so. I think I'd still go with this on almost all my knights. And then this one is actually interesting. This one I have used. I don't think it's terrible. I just prefer the passive. But this is definitely viable in my opinion. This really lets you leverage your knight like I was talking about before. That 30% physical defense for 4 rounds is excellent. This is just a matter of mana. If I had a knight with just an absurdly big mana pool, I think this is better than this. But for most knights, that's not going to be the case. You know, this guy has 99 mana, but I'm still not going to do it. I just want to be able to use this over basic attack a lot more, which is what that boils down to. Because I want to be dazing the front boars. That just helps you. It helps you keep up your anti-daze buff as well. I haven't been playing with any level 15 knights, but we kind of have the same decision here. We have a good passive, which you always like, but if we have, you know, over 100 magic points at that point, I guess you consider Iron Shield. That's pretty good too. That's a big defensive bonus. And it helps your defense against push by a lot for 4 turns, which is very nice. So I think that is excellent if you can afford it. That being said, I think, you know, 20% basic damage sounds pretty awesome too. While the archer is your dedicated damage dealer, your knight's going to do a lot of damage. So this is excellent. Anyways, let's look at the archer. First, we have a somewhat arbitrary decision between 2 good single target attacks, piercing shot and multi-shot. Multi-shot certainly has more damage potential, but it also has more variance, whereas piercing shot is just more consistent, which is what we're looking for. It's more accurate, and getting more crits is not necessarily what we want. Then we have the first in a line of channeling attacks, which are very problematic in this encounter. Let's go ahead and look at Headbutt. But let's really read what this says, because it's easy to glance over this. This will target the channeling, if there is anybody channeling, to daze them and interrupt it. It will be random if there's nobody channeling at all. So that's a really big problem for the channeling build archer on this specific encounter. In future encounters, they're probably not going to headbutt. Maybe they have some other thing, but for whatever reason, they decided to have this attack targeting our channelers specifically. I realize you can evade a little bit better with the passive channeling thing, but it sounds terrible to basically skip your turn and then get headbutted like right before you're about to go. Then you're dazed, you're interrupted. Yikes. So that being said, I'm not interested in this channeling skill at all. I'm not interested in this to help me evade a headbutt. I'd rather just not worry about it. I'm not interested in this one either, but we'll talk about this one in a second. We get through some of their physical defense with this pierce on all 3 of these abilities, which is nice. This is also a nice, very nice actually, passive in a vacuum. But like I said, I want to control my damage. Critical striking is a good way to accidentally trigger a nuzzle, accidentally trigger a rampage, and I don't need that extra damage so much that I want to risk that. Next is the archer skill I use the most. That's piercing arrow. I almost always start the match with at least 2 or 3 of these. The only reason I would stop doing it is because I want to avoid triggering a nuzzle basing on how the damage goes. This is just a ton of damage spread out between all 3, but it's mostly to the front, like a lot to the front. So you can still focus fire. You cast 2 of these, you hit the front guy twice with your knight, he's about ready to die, right? And you're putting bleeds on the 2nd and 3rd row to kind of prep them for after the first one dies. It's not the most important thing to get damage on the back line and the mid line while you're killing the front, but it will increase your overall win percentage if you're consistently fighting Mama Boar at 600 to 800 hit points instead of 900 plus because you aren't hitting it. So this is just a ton of damage. It's a ton of value. Not super interested in this. Same with this. This can be a very good one if you're doing this multi-shot combo into this. Like, you can do a ton of damage, but it's not controlled. Like, what if I'm focus firing the front and I'm rapid shotting? I'm not guaranteed to hit the front, so that's just not what I want to do. What is really nice about this is the chance to daze on crits. This is a very powerful skill in a vacuum, no doubt about it, but I want more control. And speaking of my desire for control, in the back line, I'll either do one small stone or I'm trying out dead aim. Like I said, I'm a stats guy, so I tend to think in terms of value and variance. This is extremely high variance. Your average damage is decent, but it's very spiky, and that's kind of the opposite of what I want, because there's a lot of scenarios where this is just going to trigger a nuzzle or a rampage that I don't want, and I can't really control it at all. So like, why would I put myself in that position? I used to load this all the time, and I would just find 1 or 2 spots to use it. I've decided to try out dead aim. I'm still not sure it's better. Usually I don't use either, to be honest, but there are some spots where you want to delay your attack, basically. Like you have a kill shot ready on one of the little boars, but your knight hasn't gone yet to try to challenge, so you can do dead aim to basically kill a little boar next time, and hopefully you will have challenged the mama boar by then, or she will have started a wild charge so you avoid a rampage, something like that. Also, if you get a little boar like almost at half, like a little bit over half, say like 305 if the total is 600, this is a ton of damage. That's 2.5 attack plus 2.0 dex. So you can actually like circumvent a nuzzle with this. And while you're channeling this kill shot, that's when the other boars are going to go and they're not going to be able to nuzzle. Whereas if you had just done a piercing arrow instead, they would be able to nuzzle. And then you can kind of set this up afterwards. Once you've got the mama boar taken care of and you have the window, you can just wait around and skip that nuzzle. It doesn't work that often, but it is an interesting thing. And like I said, I'm just not that interested in one small stone. So I'm trying this. I may switch back later. After getting headbutted a couple times in an inopportune time, I may just change my mind. This one I really hate. I tried this a lot at the beginning. This can do a ton of damage, obviously, too. This can also skip a nuzzle like I just described, but exhausting yourself is such a huge penalty. That's one problem. The second problem is it costs 26 mana, where these both cost 16. That's a big problem, too. And third most, you're not guaranteed to hit. In fact, you got minus 10 accuracy on this one, where you have no accuracy penalty on this one. And my God, if you're depending on this to do a kill shot and you miss, or you miss, 2 of the 3 arrows, or even 1 of the 3 arrows, if you need them all, and then you exhaust yourself, get out of here. What are you even doing with your life? I have not yet played a level 15 archer, so you know what? I'm going to let you figure this out for yourself if you have a level 15 archer. I'm not just going to read this and give you the top of my head. I don't know. Let's go ahead and move on to the priest and get this done. So I've heard a lot of chatter about Prayer of Healing. It's extremely efficient. It's a very good single target heal. I never use it. And the reason is simple. I need to do damage, and this is the only way I can do it. That's Holy Light, and they're in the same tier. When the day comes where I can load 2 tier 1 skills, I will strongly consider Prayer of Healing. It seems great. Cleansing Gift seems like the worst of the 3. Although it certainly has its uses, you're definitely bleeding a lot. Sometimes you get taunted and it's a really big problem, especially if your archer got pushed to the front and gets taunted. But like I said, this is the only way I can do effective damage with the priest. Otherwise, I'm using basic attacks and I need to focus my damage. I need to be proactive. I need to be able to kill a little boar when I have a window to do it. And this is the best way for the priest to help with that. So I don't really care how good this heal is. I'm not 100% sure that 5% spell is better than 10% healing potency. Guess we'd have to break down the formulas. I'm not sure that we have those formulas, but this spell is helping my damage here, which is nice. And spell is helping my 2 heals as well, so it seems like I want the 5% spell to me. Critical heal chance does not appeal to me, not compared to the rest. As for the 3rd tier skill, I was all about Prayer of Might at the beginning. Problem is, it just costs too much for 27. You never really want to do this. It's very niche that you would do this. It's just too much mana. It's a problem. Exception being if you're running like a level 6 or level 7 priest somehow, and you can kind of use it to indirectly do damage from a higher level knight or archer that's getting the bonus. That seems fine, but if I'm rarely using these 3, which is true, they just cost so much mana, I just don't want to use these. Holy Circle, just 43? No way. Not going to happen. However, freedom is sometimes going to happen. Talked about when you get taunted sometimes, it's a really big disaster. You can get 3, 4, 5 bleeds stacked on top of each other if you're unlucky. And as tough as your knight is, if he's bleeding for 60, 70 damage a turn, you really want to have this tool in your arsenal. It's completely possible that I'll go through an entire game and never cast freedom, maybe a couple games, but when you cast it, you'll be happy it's loaded. And then to be perfectly honest, on the 4th tier, I've just always been into Holy Beacon. It does exactly what I want to do, especially if I'm running Holy Light. Because what I want to do, once somebody starts taking a bunch of damage, my knight's at half or 60% or whatever and bleeding, I just want to cast this and kind of just let him work through it. That 4 turns healing dot is amazing. That's so many turns. And it really frees up my priest action, like I said, to be able to find a window to cast Holy Light to do some damage and help out with what we're trying to accomplish in terms of killing a little boar. The fact that I'm not running the Prayer of Healing makes me kind of unable to run this barrier. I think those kind of just have to be in combination with each other, because I'm never going to put a barrier on my knight that's half dead and then just not be able to heal him, which is exactly what happens because I'm relying on this Holy Beacon a lot for my healing, which is a choice. You know, this costs a lot, but we got mana for something. This is what we do to keep from dying. Usually on the front line, you can use some potions here and there to help spot heal some people, like in the mid or back line, if they need it, if they're in danger of dying to a headbutt. But with this formation, Holy Beacon does a lot. Maybe this will be useful in other encounters where our speed is more of a thing because we have different classes. I just can't give up my Holy Beacon in order to do this, no matter how cute it is. Divine Barrier is just a better version of this. I guess I could use it because this barrier isn't interfering with my Holy Beacon spell, but the thing that really appeals me about using a level 15 or higher priest is this Holy Wrath. This does a ton of damage, a couple hundred. It costs 35. It gives you a decent chance to stun as well if you use it right after Holy Light. It's just an excellent spell, and it's, like I said, this is how you can nuke with a priest, so I think it's worth it. Maybe I'll try out this barrier thing. This also seems very powerful to me, Amnesia Force, so I think the devs agree. I'm sure there will have spots come up which we develop the game a little more where this makes a lot of sense, but right now that's kind of the last thing I want to do is spend a ton of mana and exhaust myself when I could just spend a lot less than that and pretty much heal through anything with Holy Beacon. So that's the skill combination I use and why. It's very debatable that these are the 12 strongest skills. It's just the ones that I've found that work the best for what I'm trying to accomplish in this particular encounter. And my next couple videos are going to be just gameplay, talking through some decisions. I'll talk about when exactly I would want to do something weird like dead aim, when exactly I want to challenge, when exactly I need to heal versus go offensive and stuff like that. That's going to be my next video, is kind of more of the same of what I did in that combat encounter last time, just to kind of reiterate it and go through some different examples. I also want to show you at least one replay of how you die, how everything goes wrong, just to talk through it. Like, it's not a big deal. It happens to all of us. It'll be good to get that balance as well. And then a video after that, I want to go through some of these wonky compositions and use some severely misbalanced parties to see what we can accomplish in terms of using this combat party average level as efficiently as we can. But until then, that's it for this video. I hope I didn't offend you by not including your favorite skill. Happy hunting!